Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with the look at the market for the week ending November 25th, 2016. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving holiday and meal and so on. The market this week, it was a shortened week, of course, but the market really had a great week. And before we take a look at the action that occurred this past week, let's read the disclaimer that I have up here. Trading and investing has large potential rewards and large potential risks. This video presentation is designed for educational purposes only and is not a solicitation or advice to buy or sell any securities or other tradable instruments. You must be aware of the risks and be willing to accept them in order to invest in the markets. Consult a licensed professional investment advisor for investment advice. So let's turn to the charts, and we begin as we always do with the monthly chart of the S&P 500. Before we begin with the monthly chart, before I forget to do so, next weekend I won't be doing this. I'll explain in the email that I send you with the attachment for the charts later on. So on the monthly chart, we can see here that we closed at the high of the month. So we're making a new high. Um, this is a very bullish bar. We have parabolic remaining below the most recent bar. We have the Kalman filter above the instantaneous trend line. Therefore, this trend remains in a nice uptrend, this S&P. In the middle of the chart, MACD just turned positive. It's just slightly above the zero line, so at 1.96, but at least it's in bullish territory. And at the bottom of the chart here, Alex Elder's force index crossed above this trend line and is trending up. So there's nothing not to like about this chart. So let's take a look at the weekly chart. And here's the weekly chart of the S&P 500. And as we can see, the Kalman filter is now above the instantaneous trend line. We have this gap up here last week. We opened higher than the close and we closed even higher than that at the high for the week. So this is very bullish. The parabolic, as I mentioned last week, since we hit the parabolic here, the yellow dot last week, I anticipated that this parabolic will go below the next week's bar, and so it is. It's below the last week's bar, so to speak. And so we are now reversing this slight downtrend to an uptrend. That's what a parabolic does. It's called a parabolic stop and reverse indicator. So this is now in an uptrend. We have Kalman filter crossing above the instantaneous trend line, and this is signaling an uptrend. Percent R bumped off as we saw, bumped off the 50% line as we saw last week, and is now situated above the 80% line. So momentum has been pretty strong here. Whether it continues is another question. We'll talk about that in a while. RSI also bumped off of this support level at 40 and is now above 60. So we also have MACD trending up from below the zero line. It is now slightly below at minus 0.49. So we can see that that's the case here. So all in all, this chart is also very bullish. The monthly chart looks very bullish and the weekly chart looks very bullish. So let's take a look at the daily chart of the. And here's one of those daily charts of the S&P 500 that we usually look at. This one is, I call it the 930 chart because we have the 9 EMA in yellow, exponential moving average in yellow. We have the blue line, which is the 30 weighted moving average. And in this case, it would be a 30-day because a daily chart. And as we can see, this 9 EMA crossed above the 30 weighted moving average and above the 90 weighted moving average, and it continued to go up. Now on Friday we had a gap up here again, and of course we had the holiday. Thursday was a holiday, so there's no no bar here, price bar, but it gapped up and the parabolic is below the most recent bar. So there is no indication to reverse this uptrend that we've been in now for a couple of weeks. In the middle of the chart, RSI 12 is now above us, remains above 60%. So the trend remains up since it crossed above the 40 line here. And 40% line. And Williams pro buying indicator is now way above here in bullish territory, as is percent R being above 80%. So all of these three indicators here, they're probably quite highly correlated. And I'm going to take a look at that because, if they're so highly correlated, we only need to look at one. But in any case, it's fun. Take a look at them. The Williams pro buying indicator is above the zero line, and they're all three in very bullish territory. So every time frame we look at, the monthly, weekly, and daily charts are all looking very bullish, and that's no secret. Everyone who has observed the market in the last few weeks know that that's the case. But let's take a look at something else anyway. Now here's a weekly chart of the NASDAQ composite. Excuse me. I did some calculations here to calculate the target from this triangle, this ascending triangle, ABCD triangle, which I plotted last week, and anticipating that we're going to get a move up because this triangle occurred at the end of an uptrend. So what we have here is a target now of 56.54. I put a decimal point in here, but I made an error. It should be 56.54 as the target because we take 53.44, we subtract 50.34, A minus B. We come up with 310 and we add it to the point C, which is 53.44, and the target is 56.54. No period, no decimal point, of course. So there's where you have your target. Now, that's on the weekly chart. On the weekly chart of the NASDAQ, we could see that since we entered this uptrend here, when we crossed above the 40% line, we are still above that. In fact, we came a little below 50% and trended up again. At the bottom of the chart, MACD is continuing to trend up from below the zero line, which is usually a good opportunity to get into the market when we are trending up from below the zero line. So here we are just down by 1.49 points on the MACD here. So the weekly chart of the NASDAQ is looking very, very bullish. And like I mentioned a couple of times now, every time we've done this every week, Kalman filter remains above the instantaneous trend line. If the NASDAQ, as many people believe, leads the rest of the market, then this augurs well for the future, for the bullish scenario, for those who are buying and owning stocks. So let's take a look at something else, perhaps a daily chart. Now here's the weekly chart of SSO, the ETF that I trade for the S&P 500. Just want to take a look at this because there's some interesting things here. The zero line reject materialized in an uptrend here. In other words, it broke above the zero line here. And so now we're in this obvious uptrend. We have parabolic below the most recent bar. But what I want to point out is that we are now bumping up against the 200 level on CCI. And when we get to that level, it's an indication that the market is getting very overbought. So don't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised to see somewhat of a correction here. And with that in mind, let me show you something that reminds me every day that markets do go down. And here it is. When I was working, one of my patients gave me this drawing of Emmett the Clown, Emmett Kelly. So stocks do go down. So whenever it's right over my desk, and whenever I get a little cocky about the market, I'm reminded, take some profits. because markets do go down. Anyway, that's just a little fun thing. Let me take a look at one other thing before we close. So before we end, let's take a look at the impulse bars here on the S&P 500, the stockcharts.com chart. And we can see that on the weekly chart, we had 3 green bars in a row here for the weekly chart. And so it's now closing above 2200. It's closed above 2200, which was resistance here for a while. And now we broke above resistance. So 2200 should serve as support. So even if we pull back a bit, hopefully we will find support at 2200. In the middle of the chart, MACD, we saw this before. It's trending up. And of course, Williams percent R is above 20%. So the impulse bars are telling us we should be buying the market, not shorting it. Let's take a look at the daily chart. On the daily chart, we have a blue bar, but since the weekly chart is green, a green bar, no indication here that you would want to be shorting this market, because any pullback should be brief and very shallow. And before we end, I just want to give a little shout out to my friends Bob and Robin, who are now sailing the high seas, and they keep posting some beautiful pictures of sunsets and sunrises and some other beautiful pictures on Facebook. Have a wonderful, safe trip around the world or wherever you're going. Guys, be safe. And the rest of us, have a good weekend. Bye-bye.